I drank pots and pots and pots and pots of strong black coffee, trying to keep my sleepy soul awake. But the sleepiness still comes along, and when it does, it's fast and strong. I end up with a bad case of the shakes.
Hey, good morning. It's Guido coming at you with Tactics Talk. It's time for another coffee talk. It's the weekend, and we're going to talk about what's happened in World of Tanks the last week and a couple of things that are coming up. So I hope you've got your cup of coffee or your cup of tea, whatever your morning drink of choice is. And we're going to talk about three subjects today. The first thing we're going to talk about is the chat server debacle that happened for the last couple weeks on the NA server. Some interesting side notes to come out of that. Number two, we'll talk about the 9.19.1 preview that just came out. So some things that are going to change or potentially change. Realize that this is just a preview. And number three is French and Japanese rebalance and some of the strangeness that's going to go on with that. So grab your coffee, grab your tea. Maybe you've got a whiskey. I don't know. I hope not. I suppose it's 12 somewhere, and let's get on with it. Okay, let's start with the contacts list issue. For the last couple weeks, the contacts list has been borked. Whether it was the clan affiliations were wrong, or the entire contacts list didn't work, or you couldn't chat, there was all kinds of different problems, and it came and went. They attempted several different fixes, and if you dug around and you looked hard, you could find out a little bit of information about what was going on. But never once was there a specific post saying, or even a post on their main webpage saying, hey, chat server NA, we know it has a problem. Here's what we're trying to do. Bear with us. We're working on it. Just wasn't there. If you dug around in the forum, you could kind of see that they were working on it. There were, if you go to the news and information where I would suspect they would put stuff like that, there are some pinned threads right here, but not a one of them says, hey, NA chat server problem. There are some threads right here started by Dance, who's really the only person who's attempted to make any communication about this, talking about micro patches, and the micro patches in general have been trying to fix this. And it's been going on for 2-3 weeks, but never once did they just put it all in one big thread saying, hey, we're working on it. Here's the news. See, it's called the news and information. News and information. Well, it's not really news and information if I've got to dig through a micro patch discussion where they're not really talking about the contacts list issue directly. It's just kind of going around it. And there were a few responses by Dance, so that's good. I mean, they're working on it, but it just kind of blows my mind after all the PR things that they have had going on lately, that in the news and information section of their forum, they didn't just pin a subject line that says contact list situation or something like that, where Dance could just put it in there one time. He doesn't even have to leave it open to discussion. Just lock it. Say, look, here's the current update. And then edit day 5, day 7, whatever the case may be. You have to dig around and kind of figure it out. I mean, that's just frustrating. And it's why over in general gameplay, you have 69,000 bloody threads about it. If they'd have done the same thing over in general gameplay, pinned it at the top and said, chat server problem, situation, details inside, we'd have not had 69,000 bloody threads about it. I don't understand. How is that so hard? It's not. It blows my mind that they don't do it that way. Absolutely blows my mind, and especially in light of the PR situation that they've had lately. So really, guys, come on. Next time you have a big thing like this going on, where the entire community is aware of it, how about in news and information, you actually pin a thread with the information, as opposed to burying it in various discussions about micropatches. If the micropatch discussion is where you're going to put it, how about pin it at the top and give some kind of subject line heading at the end in parentheses or something, chat server problems. I mean, this was big. The whole community was ticked off about this. It was obvious. There was threads everywhere. Flames coming at Wargaming. Everyone had their flamethrower out. The trolls were screaming. Flamethrowers were blasting. And just no effort to try to stave off the ridiculousness. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, so let's have another cup of coffee, or a drink of coffee at least, and we're going to move on to the 9.19.1 preview. Alrighty, 9.19.1 is on its way soon. TM. Attention, the common test is currently unavailable. We're working. Okay. Well, hey, look, there's what I was just talking about. Nice big attention news kind of thing. Awesome. Okay, so what are they going to work on? Looks like matchmaking is going to get some more overhaul, and this has been an incremental process. I really hope we're getting to the point where the heavies and mediums are going to be balanced in some fashion. I've discussed it on other videos before. I could care less about the TDs and the lights. Arty is important, I believe, to balance based on the different things it can do to a game. It can be a very big advantage or disadvantage to have more or less on either team. It just kind of depends on the map and the situation. But TDs and lights, I don't care. It's mediums and heavies that's driving the imbalance there, Wargaming, just so you know. But I do appreciate that what they're doing here is for like top tier, if you've got a 3, 5, 7, the lights will not be matched against, say, a tier 10 light matched against a tier 8 light, which right now Matchmaker says, all right, each side has a light, and one gets an 8 and one gets a 10. Okay, that's not really matching right there, especially if the other team that has the tier 10 light is faced off against 3 tier 10 heavies on the other side. And now we understand the problem. Once again, it's heavies and mediums. That is the imbalance. But that's all right. So they're working on it. It got kind of interesting, though, when we get down to the bottom here, and it says team lists. And apparently, I'll lift it up here so you can see it. Apparently, they're going to re-wicker the way the teams list looks on either side of your screen because there has been a great hue and outcry about the team lists. I mean, they have been really just kind of driving a lot of the problems. Why are you messing with the team? I mean, how much development time did you just spend on that? Seriously. Whew. Okay. They seem to think that it is going to help people kind of analyze the battle, and that's kind of going to help newer players and things. I don't really buy that, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll see. I just really don't think that was even anywhere near the top of the list. So that was pretty cool. So boot camp, this is interesting. People have been asking for this for a long time. You know, there's a lot of threads where people discuss, you know, if we only had some good training. The real problem with bringing new players in is there's no good game training. You know, we need a good tutorial system. You know what I mean? No. I sincerely doubt that. I think you need a good onboarding and tutorial system just for very basics, but I don't think that's going to magically increase the skill of the gameplay for game players. I mean, that's just experience and learning the game as you go. However, I'm not poo-pooing this. Excellent. They're going to give you a step-by-step because it is quite complicated to navigate through what you're looking at, the garage back behind the web page right there, figuring out how to get to the depot, how to get to the store, how to get your modules, how to sell your modules, all the different things. There's a lot of detail in there that you need to learn. So that's good. I will get on board with that. And then once again, a decision is made that just sort of blows my mind. You look down here, it says boot camp is available to new and experienced tankers alike. Oh, cool. However, only newcomers get to keep resources they earned while learning. All right, look, I don't necessarily need free stuff, but I am quite certain that whatever the gifts or winnings here are not very much. So why on earth would you delete the incentive for the experienced players to go through your tutorial, take a look at it, and see how it works and maybe give you some feedback? And who cares if you gave them a freaking gun rammer and 200,000 credits or whatever, even if it ends up being 500,000? Why not just let everybody in the game go through the boot camp, and if experienced guys go through it and they get a few gifts, so what? Maybe you get some feedback. I don't get that kind of decision. That is so tight in the nether regions. I can't even begin to describe it. It's just dumb. Another opportunity to make huge points with your player base. How about you say, however, everyone gets to keep the information. You get to go through it once, and please give us some feedback. Who makes these decisions? Get rid of that guy. Seriously. All right. Changes to personal missions. Yeah, these are needed because they've done quite a few changes to the way, for example, Artie works and the way that lights are put into games and such. Some of the personal missions have become a little bit goofy and in some cases very difficult to finish. So we'll see what they come up with on that. I think probably the biggest complaint for most people with that is it doesn't seem like some of the guys who make the decisions on these, the developers that make the decisions on what the requirements are, really play the game, or they don't play it at a high level and don't have a good understanding of exactly what these missions should be. I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what all these missions should be, but I can look at a couple of them and say, it is exactly not that. So I could probably come a little bit closer, but awesome. They're looking at it, so we'll see how it comes out. Particularly for me, I'm looking forward to the new missions. I'm only one away from getting the bloody Object 260, but the new missions should be pretty cool too. I don't know how long those are down. Then we're going to get 8 new HD models, 12 odd tanks or something like that. They're all things I don't really play, so it looks like we're getting through the HD model thing. So they've really been plugging away on those. Good on them. They look fantastic. Look, here it is. Everyone's been waiting for the GC. My goodness, look how sexy that thing is. It's just awesome. And a bunch of Artie, and I don't even know what that is, one of the French things. I don't play down there very much, another Artie. And that is pretty much the new 9.19.1 with a little bit of goofiness in there. But again, a lot of that stuff may or may not come, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It seems, at least the idea of what they're doing is probably going to be fairly specific. When we get into the next thing where we talk about the Japanese and French rebalance, a lot of the numbers may change based on the test and all that good stuff. But I think the general idea of them isn't going to change, and that's what's going to be interesting when we get to this next section and start talking about it. So have another drink. It's my Walt Disney cup. Oh, hold on. Dad. That's right, in case you were wondering, or anyone else who's looking at my cup. Let's get on with it. Okay, let's start with the French rebalance. The reverse speed of all French tanks is now going to be 600 miles an hour. I'm just kidding. There's the Foch 155. I hope you didn't like the 155 on that because it is gone. The French TDs are kind of the lost stepchildren of World of Tanks, and you do not see a whole lot of them, although they are pretty decent snipers at the tier 8 and 9. Even the 7 to a large extent is a pretty good sniper. But the general idea of what they're going to do is going to change because, I'm going to look over here at Rita's website, realize these numbers are not the final numbers, but it's a good idea to look at what they're trying to do. And they've taken the tier 8, the AMX AC MLE 48, and they turned it into an autoloader because they need more autoloaders. I do not understand that decision. The tier 8, tier 9 were pretty good. Even the tier 7 were pretty good snipers. And if you could stay hidden, they could dish out some pretty good damage. They had great pen, relatively decent reload, and a decent hitting power. But now it is turned into a 3-shell, you can see right here, capacity auto loader. Then they futzed around with some of the numbers. They reduced the accuracy because most autoloaders have worse accuracy just because of World of Tanks. They decreased the aim time. Okay, so the accuracy is worse, but the aim time is faster, so it'll zoom in a little bit faster. Okay. And they've just changed the dispersion for whole rotation. They made it an autoloader. Get down to the Foch, the AMX 50, that's the tier 9. Once again, they've given it an autoloader. It's going to have 4 shells. Both of them have around a 30-second reload, by the way. So a tank, a TD that was actually a pretty good sniper that could lay down a pretty good steady rate of fire downrange, as long as it stayed hidden, it was in pretty good shape, is now going to be turned into a burst potential TD that still doesn't have a whole lot of armor in the front. You see where I'm getting at right here? that whole idea just really doesn't work. In fact, they got rid of a TD autoloader recently. Remember the WTF, the WT100, and now they're adding a few more back in. Now, granted, these do not have turrets. They may have turrets, but they do not have turrets. Interestingly, they have decided to increase the side armor on the AMX 50 Foch because there's all kinds of side scraping going on with these. Okay, I'll take a buff and armor on anything. Why not? A little extra armor never hurt. I don't really understand what's going on with that. This thing gets flanked, whether it's this thickness or this thickness is not really going to matter at that tier. They're all going to go through. So they have per shot reload 2.4. Like I said, it's got 4 shells. Talked about the armor. Now this one's accuracy is going worse, reduced, and its aim time is now worse. So this is a pretty fantastic sniper. If you ever played the old AMX 50, they could fire pretty quick, had really good accuracy, and now they're messing around with it. These numbers are not too much. I mean, that's not a whole bunch of reduction right there. So I do like that they're not making wild swings when they do these. But it's just interesting to me that now as they put the autoloader on there, all of a sudden it has to be a little more inaccurate. Because when you look at it, the DPM has reduced quite a bit for both of them. So from 2691 to 24, that's 200 odd. But if you go back to the 48, it goes from 2400 down to 1800. That's 500 difference in DPM. That's quite a bit just for that burst potential, which in these corridor maps and the way things are set up is not viable. You're never going to be able to, very rarely, don't say never, you're very rarely going to be able to get that AMX AC MLE 48 or even the Foch with a full clip, get in front of somebody and start whacking them as fast as possible with your autoloader and knock them down. You maybe get a shot or two before they get away. That's typically how it goes. And then, of course, you're probably spotted and you're getting massacred at that point. Then you're trying to reload for 30 seconds. I mean, it just really is not, it's a bad idea for these kinds of TDs. When you get to the Foch B, which is used to be called the 155, you can see it in my garage. Sounds like they're going to rename it. It's then going to get an autoloader as well, but it's going to be the 120 millimeter AC 46 autoloader. It's getting a little bit more armor right there. And you can see that some of its numbers are changing. Reduced accuracy. It never really had great accuracy to begin with. Decreased aim time, that is going to help it a little bit right there. And some of the dispersion elevation. This one's getting quite a bit of changes actually right there to it. And it's going to end up having, I believe, 6 shells. There they are, the weapon parameters, with quite a bit of penetration. I'm sorry, a lot less penetration. A little misquote right there, from 293 down to 257. Damage reduced in that big 750 from the 155 down to 400. But you can see that its DPM has increased significantly from 2300 to 3100, which is kind of crazy. It's really kind of just switching around the autoloader idea on this thing. But once again, the problem with the AC-155 currently is that it doesn't have an opportunity based on the maps and the way the game is played to actually throw all those rounds downrange at one time. And this is not going to change anything. It's still going to have that problem. Moving on to the AMX 5100, where you've got increased depression on that. I don't know why that's a big deal, but it is. You can see that the prototype, he's getting some more armor on his turret, although it looks like the front of the hull is going to be overall less out of there. This is going to make this tank a little bit more interesting as far as being a ridge fighter, poking over, because right now it kind of gets its rear kicked in that aspect. Very soft overall. And then there's some more gun changes in here, making it, I believe, a little bit more accurate. So that's pretty much the French changes right there. And without, again, getting too much into the numbers, what we have here are the TDs are getting significantly reworked and turned into autoloaders. And I really don't see that helping those TDs be any more popular or any more viable. We'll see what happens when it comes out. People do tend to love autoloaders, and if you're a camp the bush in the very back, that may appeal to you. As long as you can stay unspotted, you may get several of those rounds downrange. But then, of course, you're eating a 30-second reload after that point. And I really don't think that addresses anything to do with the French TDs, but we shall see. We shall see. All right, we'll move on to the Japanese changes. All right, the Japanese changes center around the super heavies, which are controversial to say the least. You look at the 01 experimental, and it's losing its top gun, which was kind of a ridiculous gun for its tier, especially above tier as well. But they are increasing the armor. So even with its little short stubby derp gun and the extra armor, this is still going to be a formidable tank. I don't know if that actually addresses the problem with the tank. But there you go. They got rid of the gun. Now it's got more armor. So it's a different kind of problem now, isn't it? The 01 is a tank that you have to flank, especially at tier, and even its sides are problematic for some peer tanks, same tier tanks. So what they did is they decreased the rear armor thickness. Oh, come on, guys. I mean, yeah, I get it. You need to flank it, but people don't immediately get back to the back. I mean, you can't just say, hey, we decreased a little bit of the rear armor, so now it's flankable and it's dealable at its own tier. But that's what they've done. It's something. All right, it is something. The OHO is going to get armor piercing for its 10 centimeter, which is not the derp gun. Which is going to be interesting because that gun was always sort of problematic. It didn't have a lot of pen, very difficult to use in the current game, especially with the way the armor is being increased and the foes that this OHO would see. But what that's going to do essentially is give this tank two very viable guns, I believe. And that's something that not a lot of tanks have. So that's really a straight upgrade. I don't know if the OHO was really having a problem, because usually people would run around with the derp and just blap people. So that will be interesting to track and see what goes on there. I'm not going to come down on either side, but I do question a little bit the idea that you're going to give it two very good viable guns. Not a lot of tanks have that. The Type 4 and the Type 5 are going to get some armor changes, and supposedly, I'll get it called up right here, supposedly this is to make them more vulnerable with weak spots. All right, so you look at the old, there it is, the number's 250, 250, so it's very difficult to pen. That's highly angled right there. Then we go here and what? So there's a 230 and a 240 weak spot. Those are the weak spots. That's what they did. Okay, based on the way the mechanics work, the plus or minus, the RNG, yeah, if you can get above that 240, that probably will bring, if you look back at it, that probably will bring a few guns into the realm where they can actually pen into these areas. But, okay, I don't know if those qualify as weak spots, I guess is what I'm getting at. You can run the numbers for the various guns that it sees, and these are relatively large. I mean, they're not huge, but they're decent, especially if you're close. You might be able to get into those things. But I'm really unsure if those qualify as actual weak spots. And they did some other things. The hull traverse and the turret traverse has changed. Well, that's interesting. It is getting quite a bit slower. Dispersion during turret traverse is changing, and some other various stuff coming in there. So definitely some changes on the super heavies, kind of a mixed bag. So what's my opinion of all the Japanese and the French changes? And again, they may not be exactly what they say. They can always wicker the numbers, but it seems like rearranging the deck chairs to me once again. They're hot and heavy in this rebalance thing, but they still haven't addressed the premium ammo issue, which is driving their problems balancing with the two wildly different pen values for standard ammo and whatever premium type of ammo that the tank has. It's just, to me, rearranging deck chairs on the sinking boat. Yeah, it looks different, and you've moved some things, and you may have slightly fixed one tank in one direction and one tank in the other direction, but your overarching problem still remains the fact that you've got two wildly different pen values with premium and regular ammo. And at this point, when you change these numbers, it's just flavor of the week. So you're just shifting a few tanks here and there, and you say, okay, those are balanced, and you move on to the next one, but they're not really balanced because you still have the premium ammo problem out there. Are you balancing them for premium ammo, or are you balancing them for regular ammo? Are you trying to hit somewhere in between? I don't know. Nobody knows. And when you see lots of different random kind of changes like this, there you go. Especially in the case of the Type 4 and the Type 5 with kind of a the weak spot that's not really a weak spot idea seems to be trying to answer the community's problems with heavily armored, no weak spot tanks, but it comes off looking like, how do I say this? They are acting like they're addressing the problem without actually addressing the problem. That's sort of what it comes off to for me. So let's have another drink. And that is pretty much it for Coffee Talk. We discussed the chat server issue, the things they could do there to do better in the future. We talked about the 9.19.1 preview, some good and some interesting decisions coming in there. And we talked about French and Japanese rebalance, things that we may see, may or may not see in the future. But I think more importantly, it's the overall idea that's interesting for those two. Hope you like what you saw. If you did, make sure you subscribe, like, follow, favorite, wherever you end up seeing this thing. Go ahead and get yourself another hot cup of coffee. And I will see you out on the battlefield. Later.